Hello children, welcome back to the class. Today's topic is sexual reproduction. Let us discuss few concepts with regard to sexual reproduction. So far we have discussed about the asexual reproduction and its types. Now let us enter into the concept of sexual reproduction. What is sexual reproduction? Sexual reproduction involves the complete fusion of male and female gametes to form a diploid zygote. Then the zygote will develop into a new individual. So, sexual reproduction is a type of reproduction. So, already we know there are two types of reproduction. One is asexual reproduction, in which there is no gamete formation and there is no gametic fusion. Whereas, this is called as sexual reproduction, where the gametes will be formed and the gametes get fused and it gives rise to a zygote, and the zygote then undergoes division and forms the new individual. This is the basis for sexual reproduction. In all sort of sexual reproduction, there will be fusion of gametes. But in some cases, there won't be any sort of direct fusion of gametes. But in those cases, there will be an exchange, or there will be a fusion of genes, or there will be a combination of chromosomal segments or chromosomal parts, union of chromosomal structures. All these things comes under the sexual reproduction. So, sexual reproduction is a type of reproduction which involves the complete fusion of male and female gametes to form a diploid zygote which develops into a new individual. And sexual reproduction always leads to genetic variation. Why? Because in sexual reproduction there will be a union of two chromosomes or two genes. Usually we call it as recombination of genes, because during the meiotic division of the gamete formation, there occurs the meiotic division. As a result, there will be a recombination of genes. Because of this recombination of genes, we can able to get the variation among the individual offspring. So always sexual reproduction leads to genetic variation. Speaking about the types of sexual reproduction, there are two types of sexual reproduction. One is said to be syngamy or fertilization. Another one is said to be conjugation. Syngamy. So, the meaning for this term syngamy means, syn means fusion or combination. Gamy means gametes. So, the fusion of gametes is what we call it as syngamy, which can also be called as fertilization. Both these terms can be used on par with each other, because more or less both of them are similar. Whereas we can say fertilization is the process of fusion of egg and sperma. Right? Next type of sexual reproduction is conjugation. And conjugation is a temporary union of gametes or the cells. It is seen in lower group of organisms. We have to understand the major difference between syngamy and conjugation. Syngamy is the complete or the total union of gametes resulting in the formation of zygote, whereas conjugation is a temporary. It is for certain period of time. After that, the cells once again get separated. So this is the major difference between syngamy and conjugation. Types of fertilization. So based upon where the fertilization occurs, we know fertilization is the fusion of gametes. That is, the fusion of male and female gametes is said to be fertilization or syngamy. And this fertilization, based upon its site of occurrence, it has been categorized into two types. One is said to be external fertilization, another one is said to be internal fertilization. External, as the name indicates, the fusion occurs outside the body of the organisms. Right? So you can able to see in this image. So these are the male and female fishes. The male fishes deposits its sperm outside its body in the water. At the same time, the eggs are laid by the female fishes. So both egg and the sperm are released in the water. Now because of the water current, movement of the water, the sperms will fuse with the egg. So here the fusion occurs outside the body. That is why it is said to be external fertilization. Another type of fertilization is what we call it as internal. That is, the fertilization occurs inside the body of the organism, that is in the female body, right? So there will be male and female partner. So the male, right? So the male partner deposits its sperm into the body of the female during the process of copulation or mating. So the sperms will enter into the body of the female. Inside the body of the female, the fusion will occur or the fertilization will occur. So here the fusion of the gametes occur inside the body of female organism. Hence it is called as internal fertilization. So based upon where the fertilization occurs, the fertilization can be classified into external fertilization and internal fertilization. External fertilization is usually seen in fishes, amphibians, whereas internal fertilization is seen in higher group of animals like vertebrates, insects. All these things show the internal fertilization. Next, types of syngamy. So there are various types of fusion based upon the morphology and the production of gametes. So you can able to see the list of syngamy types: autogamy, exogamy, hologamy, ptogamy, merogamy, isogamy, anisogamy. So let us discuss one by one. Autogamy. Auto means self. Gamy means fusion. Autogamy means self fusion. Here, male and the female gametes are produced by the same cell. It is a type of self-fertilization. Both the male and the female gametes are produced by the same cell or in the same body, and they both get fused to form a zygote. From the zygote, then they develop into the new organism. Right? If you look at the image, it can be understood. So this is the autogamy process in the paramecium. So this is the diagrammatic representation of the paramecium. While studying about the asexual reproduction, I have told you paramecium has two types of nucleus. One is micronucleus, another one is macronucleus. So if you see the picture, the micronucleus undergoes meiotic division and forms the 8 nucleus. That is, each nucleus undergoes division, meiotic division, and forms 4. So we get 8. So out of these 8, right? So 2 nuclei get fused and forms a single nucleus, what is called as zygotic nucleus. Here there is no specific gametes, but the nuclei are getting fused. As I have already stated you, sexual reproduction means fusion of gametes, but it also refers to the fusion of genes or nuclei or whatever it may be, right? So here, because of these fusion of 2 nuclei which are produced inside the same cell, this is called as autogamy, which is seen in the paramecium species. The next is called as exogamy. Exogamy, this is the most common type. Here there will be 2 partners, male partner and female partner. Male will produce the male gametes and female will produce the female gametes. Here the gametes are produced in 2 separate bodies, right? So human beings comes under the exogamy because the sperms are produced in the male body, whereas the ova are produced in the female body. Later during the copulation, both egg and the sperm will meet and the fusion of the gametes will takes place. So this is what we call it as exogamy. The next type is called as hologamy. In hologamy, this is a special case. Here there is no special gametes, but the entire organism itself behaves like a gamete. So look at the image. So these are the two cells of the Copromona species. So these are the unicellular protistans. So this is the one cell and this is one cell. This is the entire living cell with the flagella, right? So this entire cell itself behaves like a gamete after the maturity, right? So there is no special gamete production in this organism. This cell itself act like a gamete, and during the reproduction process, two mature gametes come together, they get fused, then the nuclei get fused, and see, the nucleus get fused and forms a single nucleus, and this is the zygote. This zygote then develops and comes out as a new species or new individual. So this type is said to be hologamy. In hologamy, always gametes won't be formed. The entire organism, the mature organism, behaves itself like a gamete. The next is Ptogami. So this is another type of sexual reproduction or syngamy. Here, the sexual union of the young individuals produced immediately after the division of adult parent cell by mitosis. So here, if you see this image, see, this is one cell of the actinophyrid protestant. So this is a single cell. Inside the cell, the nucleus gets splits into two, started splitting into two nuclei. The next stage, the nuclei gets completely split into two. After this complete splitting of the nuclei, once again the nuclei gets combined, right? See here, the cell is same. It is, the cell doesn't get separated. Only the nucleus getting separated, split into two nuclei, and once again they both get fused. The immediately formed young individuals are fused once again to form a zygote. From the zygote, once again the new individual is going to develop. So this is what we call it as Ptogamy. Pto means young one, child. Pedagogy we have studied. Ptogamy means that is something related to the child. So here Pto means the newly formed. So here the newly formed nuclei immediately once again get fused to form the zygote. So that is why it is called as Ptogamy. The next type is Merogamy. Merogamy refers to the fusion of small-sized, morphologically dissimilar gametes. So structurally different small-sized gametes are called as merogametes, and the fusion of these merogametes is said to be the merogamy. The next type is said to be isogamy. Iso means similar. Fusion of the similar gametes, that is morphologically as well as physiologically. So if you see this image, we have two cells, two motile cells. So if you look at the image, both the cells look alike in their structure. They are morphologically similar as well as both are motile. Regarding the physiology, both has the ability to move. So physiologically as well as morphologically both are similar, and the union of these two is what we call it as isogamy. The next type is what we call it as anisogamy. Here morphologically and physiologically dissimilar gametes will fuse together. See, this is the fusion of, so this is the image showing this is the egg cell which is the larger in size, whereas this is the male cell which is very smaller in size. So morphologically both are different. This is large one and this is small one. Whereas physiologically this egg doesn't have any locomotory organs. It is immobile. Whereas in case of male structure, it has flagella, so it has the ability to move. So this is what. So they are morphologically dissimilar as well as physiologically dissimilar. So when these two get fused, then it is said to be isogamy. The human sperm as well as the human egg. So human egg is very larger in size, whereas the human sperm is very smaller in size, and both are dissimilar in structure. And moreover, physiologically, human egg doesn't have the ability to move on its own, whereas the human sperm has the ability to move. So human being fusion can also be called as, or vertebrate fusion can also be called as anisogamy. So these are the types of syngamy. So the next type of sexual reproduction is conjugation. Conjugation, as I have already stated, it is a temporary union. Conjugation is mostly noticed in lower group of unicellular organisms, particularly in the ciliate organisms. So conjugation is a temporary union of two individuals of the same species. See, this is one bacterial cell and this is one bacterial cell. So this bacterial cell has plasmid. Plasmids are the extra chromosomal structures present in the bacteria. So this is the bacterial cell and it has the original chromosome nucleoid, and it also has an extra chromosome called as plasmid, and this cell has a pili. Whereas there is another cell which do not has the plasmodium, but it has the nucleoid and it also does not have the pilus. So these two cells, when coming in contact to each other, the pili will act as a bridge connecting the two cells, and through this sex pili, a portion of the plasmid is transferred from the donor to the recipient. After this process of transferring, I have told you transferring of nuclei is also considered as a sexual reproduction. Here, a portion of the plasmid is the extra chromosomal DNA. A portion of the DNA is transferred from one cell to another cell. After receiving this plasmid part, now this recipient cell gets converted into a new donor. It has the, now it gets the plasmid and also it produces the pili. So this is what we call it as conjugation. During conjugation, a small portion of nuclear material, see, the entire plasmid is not getting transferred. Only a small portion of the plasmid or the nuclear material is transferred from one cell to another cell. The one which is donating is called as donor and the one which is receiving is called as recipient. After the conjugation gets over, the sex pili get disintegrated or removed and both the cells get separated. So this is what we call it as conjugation. The next is phases of life. Phases. In all the living organism, there are three basic phases. The first phase is called as juvenile phase. The second phase is called as reproductive phase. And the final phase is called as senescent phase. These are the three basic phases that can be noticed in all the living organisms in this planet. Right? So the first phase is called as juvenile phase. It is the period between the birth of the individual and up to its reproductive maturity. Right? So that growth phase. Right? So during the juvenile phase, the organism begins to grow and attains its reproductive maturity. That stage is what we call it as juvenile phase. And the second phase is called as reproductive phase. And in this phase, the organism starts to reproduce and goes on giving birth to new offspring, right? Till it ceases its reproductive capacity, it goes on producing its offspring. So that phase is called as reproductive phase, and during the reproductive phase, the organism begins to reproduce. The third phase is said to be the senescent phase, and it is the phase where the structure, the body parts and the functions of the body parts slowly gets disintegrated, and that phase is called as senescent. Senescence means aging phase. At the end of the aging phase, it leads to the death of the organism. So these are the three phases: juvenile phase, reproductive phase and senescent phase. These are the three phases which can be noticed in all the living organisms. A small note. So in this slide, I have used the images of our former Chief Minister, and these images are used only for the educational purpose. There is no other intentional motivation, right? Next is classification of animals. So animals, based on the breeding nature, on which period of the year, which time the organisms or the animals reproduce. Based on the breeding nature, animals are categorized into two types. One is seasonal breeders, another one is continuous breeders. Seasonal breeders, these are the organisms that breed or reproduce only during the specific period of the year. you can able to notice dogs usually breed during the December and January season. So only during that particular season, December and January season, they have the ability to reproduce. So those organisms are called as seasonal breeders, whereas on the other hand, another type of breeders called as continuous breeders, where the organism has the ability to breed throughout the life cycle and throughout their sexual maturity. For example, human beings, once they have attained the sexual maturity, they goes on reproducing throughout the year and throughout their sexual maturity. So these are the two different types of breeders based on the breeding nature. So children, in today's concept, we have discussed about the meaning for the sexual reproduction and the types of sexual reproduction, what is external and internal fertilization. We have discussed about the different types of syngamy, then conjugation and different phases of life and breeding types. And these can be asked as the questions from the concept which I have taught you now. So define syngamy. And the third question, explain in detail about the various kinds of syngamy. This can be asked as a 5-mark question. Describe the phases of life cycle can be asked as a 3-mark question. All these are the 3-mark questions that can be asked from this concept. Hope this session will be a useful one. Let us meet in the next episode. Thank you.